All right, welcome back to Blue by 90, presented by Feldman Chevrolet of Highland. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today. We're 1-0. Victory Monday. We're recording this. Happy Labor Day to everybody out there. It's always good to be 1-0, right? Great start to the season. The tailgate was unreal. I mean, we can talk about that in a little bit, but shout out to Feldman again. Shout out to Woodson Whiskey as well. The Camp Vodka water was going down like literal water.
Yeah, like Sammy Adams going down like water. Yeah,
exactly. Woodson Whiskey. You enjoyed it yourself. A few whiskey sours.
You know, a couple Heisman old fashions. I know they had a whiskey mule, and we had plastic cups. The mules don't hit the same unless they're in that copper mug. There's something that it does to the flavor, but it was all phenomenal. The camp was really good. I had a Hale IPA as well at some point, and it was just a great day. It was beautiful. The sun was, the high was like 72, but the sun was right.
I don't know what it felt like that was the first time that I'd been in the sun in 6 months for some reason. Like I've been outside all summer, but 72 and sunny hit my skin. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I didn't get too burnt. My aunt and uncle came up to the tailgate. My uncle was a little red. I
was very red. I'll be honest.
I avoided that, but it was just a beautiful day. We had the TV on the flatbed truck watching Ohio State, Texas, and then watching Alabama, Florida State. Couple of upsets there to start the day. So great day of tailgating, great day of football. And
Clayton Anderson.
Oh man, shout out to the guy Clayton, Bedford, Indiana, Lake Monroe down there in Bloomington. He showed out, did his thing. The whole band, they were awesome.
DJ
They were having fun. Brian, DJ Ray was there. We had, Ian Bunting, friend of the program, was there. I never am. Like, it always surprises me how large his hands are. And it just goes to show the different level of physicality that college and NFL players have with them. We saw Chris Wormley.
Chris Wormley came out,
good Michigan defensive lineman.
Friend of the pod for sure.
Yeah, had his little girls with him. I unfortunately didn't get a chat with him, but hopefully next time he's in town, we'll chop it up.
He'll come on the pod here soon too to talk ball. Him, Ian, and Jake Butt, who are all friends of the pod, just ball guys, just football guys.
No ball.
Also, Ian's an incredibly large human being. Chris Wormley, gigantic. Also,
he looks like he's like slimmed from like when he was like at his biggest at Michigan, at least, and still just a massive human being. I was like, yeah, that's Chris Wormley. Like you could just kind of tell when you're like, that's a former player coming up. It's a different level, man. So it was an awesome day. Going into the stadium, James Earl Jones, Darth Vader on the 1s and 2s on the intro video never fails to give me chills.
No. And at night too, it's even better.
And the boys touch the banner and you're just like, let's go. Let's get after it. And the crowd too. I don't know if I'm going to head myself here, but I want to talk about this.
Go for it.
Bryce goes onto the field. Michigan loses the toss. They get the ball first. Man, that pop of energy was something that we probably got to go back to JJ's first start. In terms of just like kind of the hype leading into a game, obviously Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, those games have hype, but this one just a different type of excitement from the fan base. And it just, it kind of built. And then there was a couple throws that was like, all right, now it's at a fever pitch. And then he just kept making throws where you're like, oh my God, this is an 18-year-old as of 2 weeks ago.
Let's get right into it. We had 8 months of hype of Bryce Underwood since he flipped to Michigan back in December, right? And so we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been waiting for this moment to see, okay, what is he actually going to look like in real game time, game speed in the maize and blue? First of all, he looks the part. That's first and foremost. We've seen him, in the practice film and all that. But the comfortability, the poise, I think that was what I told you, what I'm hoping to see out of him, right? On our podcast last week leading up to this, like, what does a good week for Bryce Underwood look like? I thought I wanted to see him look comfortable, look like the real deal, and he looked every bit of it. From the get-go, from him, dancing around as he's walking out for his first college snap, he's ready to go. And then just like there was never I rewatched the game just right before we recorded this too. I don't think there was one play where he looked like he was under duress or stressed or like happy feet at all. Even when he got hit a couple times, which was only a couple times, right? He looked like super comfortable. And so that to me is like the biggest takeaway from this is just, he's going to get his stats. We can talk about those too, but like, I mean, coming in at newly 18-year-old freshman in his first start ever, looked like he was a 4-year starter.
When we talked about it last week, we had different ideas, you and I, of what success looked like in game one, right? You talked about being comfortable and looking the part and, being able to manage the offense, which he did. I mean, he looked in control of the huddle. There was a lot more tempo, and I'm sure we'll talk about Chip Lindsey. But what I want to say about Chip Lindsey is I think what he did to make Bryce as comfortable as possible. The first play out, I mean, obviously you're going to let the young fella throw on the first play in the big house, right? And it's a little orbit bubble.
That's funny though, because I actually said it while we were rewatching the game of like, have we ever thrown the ball on the first play of the game in the past 5 years? And like, I feel like we've ran it every time forever.
Probably. I don't remember. You have to go back and watch them, but I think just that orbit, and then there was just a little hitch throw to Samaj, like get him in rhythm, get him comfortable. And the other thing we talked about with success is I said 2.25 and a touchdown. I think he threw for 251 and a touchdown. Should have had another. Andrew Marsh was not ready on that little fake bubble.
Yes, that was a sweet play set up.
Yes, it was a great design. And honestly, if Bryce would have waited, he would have had the post open too, or like it was kind of like a deep crosser across the middle of the field. I don't remember who was running the route, but yeah, it was just really impressive to see Bryce. I mean, do we want to talk about the throws that made us like tingle at all? Or there was a lot of them.
Watching it in real time was one thing, but then you go back on the tape, and I mean, just the velocity that ball comes out of his arm is pretty impressive.
Well, and the quickness that he makes the decisions, right? I think that's probably a lot of Chip Lindsey and just giving him a quick read. And honestly, man, Michigan's not run a lot of RPO. I really don't know what it looks like in a Michigan offense. So I don't know. There was the seam shot to Marlon that was just a bullet, and Marlon went up and caught it. There was I think my favorite throw of the night was that I don't know if it was a fake screen. It was like a wheel post that he dropped in the bucket to Marlon. Also, we're talking about Bryce. Marlon Klein, dude, like made a Willie Mays catch on that throw.
The guys have been telling us for 2-3 years now that Marlon Klein is sneakily the most athletic guy on the team. And I always was like, okay, we love Marlon. He's a friend of the pod too. But he's a big dude. He's stiff a little bit. It always looked like. And then you watch him on that play, the out and up for his touchdown, where he just like threw that guy into the sideline.
Yes, that was that was a great route. And then Bryce just threw it up, let him make the play. He's wide open. Don't need to do it. I mean, we've seen wide open tight ends in the last few games at Michigan, and it didn't turn out that way. So just, throw it up, let him make a play. It doesn't need to be a perfect throw. I mean, the 3rd and 14, right? Like let's talk about the 2-minute drive, because he was 5 of 5 for 68 yards on that 2-minute drive when, there's been a lot of people who are like, oh, it was close. It was close. It didn't feel close. There was a couple drives that New Mexico got in the first one. I think, maybe some backups on the back end of the defense that were in there that kind of gave them a little bit easier of a time. And then obviously that fumble on the kick return led to 3 points. So Michigan's coming out. It's like, go from 17-0 in cruise control to like, holy cow, this might actually be a game. Bryce gets sacked. There was a dump off on first down to Justice Haynes that didn't really go anywhere. I think it lost a yard or two. Bryce tries to step up in the pocket. He gets sacked. Great job holding on to the ball, by the way. But then
that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I think even those situations, usually a very young quarterback, either one tries to do too much and does that, but he just like every step of the way just felt like he was in control.
Yeah.
Right? But to your point real quick, I think like, I agree with you. This game was not as close as the score showed.
No.
And that is a little bit on Michigan, right? Like Michigan dominated, I think, throughout the day. But unfortunately, like a few red zone issues, not being able to punch it in, the fumbles, right? There were a couple penalties that extended New Mexico's drive. So I think the one disappointment I had on Saturday was the inability to put the game away for Michigan. That was really one of my only critiques.
Well, here's where I think they really did put the game away, was on that 2-minute drive. He was 5 of 5 for 68 yards with the touchdown, but that Channing Goodwin runs a dig. And I mean, my goodness, the arm talent on display looks like JJ McCarthy with the ball coming off of his hand, the way he spins it. That's a 39-yard gain. I mean, you're immediately from 3rd and 14 to like, they're going to, they called a timeout.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they called a timeout to like try to, save some time. And then he rifles that thing in there. You're basically at the 35-yard line of New Mexico. He makes a couple more nice throws. I think he has a throw on a hitch on the outside to McCauley. And then, a couple more plays, and he's got the touchdown to Marlon Klein. For a true freshman. Now, we're Michigan fans. We watched Michigan our whole lives. Michigan has not always been very good at the 2-minute like clock management style drives.
Yeah.
They kind of bailed you out a little bit too. I mean, Bryce and Channing Goodwin bailed you out a little bit. You go for 39 because there was like a minute 30 left at that point, and then you can kind of let the clock run out and score with 12 seconds left or whatever. But for a freshman who, 2 weeks ago, was it 13? It's like I've heard a couple people talk about it like on the broadcast and some podcasts I listen to. And maybe now it's 13 or 14 days ago. I don't know if, whatever.
August 20th, I believe it was.
Yeah, just turned 18. The poise, just the physicality that this kid has. I mean, it really is different.
How about
you
the block?
See this. I don't need that anymore.
Okay.
It was cool. Don't get me wrong,
agree.
but I don't need it.
I agree with you. Like, we need his shoulder very badly, and we need that intact at all times.
Yes.
But I think I just love the mentality of like, you're willing to stick your nose in there, B, doing it for your teammates. Like that was something I talked about as well. For as great as he is already, and how hyped up he is for his teammates. He's celebrating. Yeah. Bryce is celebrating when Justice Haynes goes for 70. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like obviously we're one game in. This is total overreaction. We're all pumped up about it, which I think is a justified reaction, to be honest.
Yeah, it looks different.
But I think I'm just so impressed by the obviously the athletic ability, but the mentality of not being a prima donna, not wanting, doesn't need it to be about him. Happy for his teammates, just everything. He showed everything to us on Saturday.
Yeah, and then there's the other throw. So it was the same drive. So we already mentioned that wheel route. When you're backed up at like your 6-yard line early in the third quarter, you're backed up. He makes that throw over 2 defenders, but drops it in the bucket because there's another defender on the other side of Marlon Klein. So he basically drops it in between 3 defenders on the money. Marlon makes a great catch. Later in that drive is when he kind of steps up to the pocket, sprints out, and then fires it right past the linebacker to Kenny. Are we calling him Kenny Bell? Because Kenny Bell played at Nebraska back in the day. Are we calling him Kenny? I don't know. Or are we calling him Kendrick? I've heard people say Kenny. I don't know.
I've always said Kendrick, so I don't. That's what I'm going to stick with.
Little Bell, Ronnie's little brother, made a heck of a play, gets upfield, but just again that ability to trust his arm, not put it in harm's way. I honestly, there were a couple other incompletions where. One to Marlon, he hits him in the hands. It's a higher throw. Marlon's not able to come down with it. Yes. I think that's something as the season goes on, you'll probably see them be more comfortable. Marlon will be expecting the fastball, right. Especially when he sees that type of defense. And it's basically the only place you can put it on that target. There was another one.
Sorry to interrupt you again. But like on that play specifically, I think, where people are like, oh, he can only throw at 100 miles an hour. And it's very different than a Joe Milton situation there because he has to throw it that fast to get it in that window.
Yes. And we also saw like a difference of speed and the ability to take it off, right? We saw the throw on the wheel that we've talked about like 8 times because it was amazing. But even on some of those bubbles, like you want to get it there quick, but you don't want to kill Samaj's hands, right? So I think he's got the ability to take some off of it. And they didn't take a lot of deep shots. There was really no opportunities for him to put any air under the ball. Like it was a lot of throws that were over the middle or to the sideline on a, on an out route or a hitch route on the sideline. And they got there in a hurry. And honestly, it really does look like JJ McCarthy. Like, that's one thing. If you've got a strong arm, it's not just throwing it deep. It's just being able to place the ball quicker to where defenders can't get to it. I mean, that smash concept, rolling to the right, the sprint out, hitting that out route or that hitch route is going to be open, and he's going to get it there.
And he can run too, right? So I think that opened up the run game as well. Last year, obviously, very incomparable to what we just saw on Saturday. But the problem,
more passing yards than any game last year, by the way,
which is insane, right? But even just watching him actually carry out the fakes on the RPO, right? Yeah. And that opens up things for Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes, which Justice Haynes also, just completely bowled out, right? Yeah. Like what a debut for him in the maize and blue. I don't know. There's just I put new look offense on our ticker here, and I'm overall very, very impressed with what Chip Lindsey brought to the table. We've talked about a lot of the breakout guys. Channing Goodwin, I thought, was a very, very bright spot for Michigan from somebody who we hadn't seen that before at all.
Yeah.
Donovan McCulley in his debut, he feels like he's going to be that possession receiver guy, there when Bryce needs him. Marlon, obviously.
Real quick, Justin, and they didn't even really, kind of take any shots to where his real advantage is, which is boxing guys out and making contested catches. Like exactly. that's the deep shot kind of guy that you can throw it up to. And those, they said 80-20 on those 50-50 balls, maybe 60-40. I'll take 60-40. 80-20 would be great, but I'll settle for 60-40. So, he was more kind of an underneath receiver on Saturday. And I think that he's going to be a guy that maybe can stretch the defense. And to your point real quick, and I'll let you go, but talking about Bryce's ability in the run game, how many times did you see if they wanted, obviously they're not going to, right? Because the behind Bryce is a little scary, a little treacherous at quarterback.
Yep.
But if you were to pull him, he might have had a couple 90-yard touchdowns if they wanted to, right? Legit. They were getting sucked in. We're obviously going to talk Oklahoma later in the week. I think you'll probably see the read option turned on for Bryce because you're going to need it to open to get the defense to not just be able to kind of come downhill. So there was still a lot that a lot of meat that they maybe left on the bone intentionally, because they've got some big games in the next few weeks.
Yeah, no, for sure. And going down the list of just the weapons, I thought Fred Moore looked pretty solid, had one drop. And Samaj, that was the first time we've seen any bubble screens work for Samaj in about 18 months. So that
much a receiver. I remember seeing him on special teams. Was that? I know Channing Goodwin had a drop where the ball was a touch outside. That was on the same drive. Yeah, that was on the same drive as the throw to Marlon and then the throw over the middle to Kendrick Bell.
I want to say, I think Fred had at least one catch and one bullet from Bryce that he couldn't reel in. So he was out there.
He was on special teams. I'm surprised he didn't get as much run.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm looking at it. It's not. He didn't.
Really?
Yeah, Bryce threw it to 8 guys. According to the stats, Fred did not record a catch. Which
I think
again,
you might be right. That I believe the 3 looked like a 9, or the 9 looked like a 3.
Yeah, I think Channing had the drop on the possession where they kicked the field goal to go up 27-10.
Yeah. So all right. Either way, I still think I was pretty impressed with the weapons out there.
Yeah.
The receiving core looks totally different than it did a year ago. Obviously having a quarterback like Bryce helps that situation a lot. Let's talk the offensive line for a second. I thought that they did well. I thought that, that was the one question mark, not the one, but one of the biggest question marks going into the season, right? Is this offensive line. I thought that overall it was they graded out pretty well for me. Some huge holes for Justice Haynes to get through there in his big runs. I'd like to see more consistency from them, because I do think there were a number of runs where, they just didn't get push. And even down in the red zone, I was disappointed, when you're on the 2-yard line and you can't get in, right? Like Michigan's offensive line from a couple years ago gets in 99% of the time. And even last year, a lot of times with Kalel Mullings, right? And so they're going to need to be able to, especially against a defense like New Mexico, you should be able to get some push to get 2 yards with Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall in there.
I do kind of wish, because Michigan's done that in the past, so they had 1st and goal to 6 after TJ Guy's pick, which was
unreal,
kind of hilarious. Off the helmet, one hands it. The offensive lineman's all over TJ Guy. Anyways,
I mean, an edge rusher should not be able to just like one hand.
He just boxed him out, man.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But you have 1st and goal to 6. I mean, you get down to the 2. It's 3rd down, and they run a play action, and they want Bryce to throw it to the corner of the end zone. Totally fine with that, trying to get Bryce a touchdown. But I mean, if you just run it 2 more times, you're going to score.
I would rather do that, and Bryce is going to get his touchdowns. That's my take, Yeah. And even if here's my take also, and again, you worry about injury, obviously, but like, do you just go tush push there with a 6'4", 235-pound quarterback?
I know. Max was on a podcast recently, and he was saying how he had never scored in however many snaps. He's like, at this point, I don't even want to score. I'm sorry, Max. We might just need to get you one.
We got to give it to you.
Just give it to him.
He's our best chance.
Yeah, and the offensive line, I will say I saw a clip late in the game because I think Sprague had been a little banged up leading into this game and had an issue with his ankle. So hopefully
he was cramping is what Sharon said as well.
That's good then, because I saw some people saying it might have been his ankle, but a cramp is, it's different. That sun might have been hitting Andrew Sprague too, man. I mean, he's a little more hydrated than we were, but it's tough to battle through.
Yeah.
But Blake Frazier came in, and there was, I think it was on Justice Haynes' 3rd touchdown after his long run where he was down at the 1, completely moved a dude. Like he was in the middle of the eye in the end zone.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the questions around Blake Frazier was just the physicality for him. He's only a redshirt freshman. Yep. Is he big enough, strong enough to compete in the run game? Because they think athletically he's a great pass pro guy. What I saw, again, New Mexico caveats apply, he moved some people in the limited game time that I kind of went back and watched. So I will say I didn't feel any immediate pressure. Maybe that was Bryce being able to step up. That helps your offensive line too, because you're not going to win every single pass pro rep, right? Like these defensive ends are talented. They've got a lot of rush moves. Even at the level of New Mexico, they can get to the quarterback. So I didn't notice any last year where it's like, oh my God, it's just a turnstile. I didn't see that. I thought Evan Link played well. I didn't, I've watched it a couple times. I haven't specifically watched him.
Yeah.
But I thought the offensive line, yes, inconsistent, but a lot better than, a lot of last year.
And overall for game 1, I was very, very happy and impressed with what they did. So I think they're only going to get better, right? And you look, Babalola, the injury obviously still hurts, and just for your depth. I did think Blake Frazier played well when he got in there. He moved some people as well. So again, that's game 1 of this offensive line being together with 3-4 new guys. It's there's not much turnover outside of Gio and Crippen in terms of guys that are Link was there last year but struggled. So new line, I think that just them playing together for the first time, they played well and are only going to get better. This defense.
Yeah.
So I think that everybody and their brother kind of knew that this defense was still going to be for real. Obviously the way that they played down the stretch last year, even, now without a Kenny Grant and without a Mason Graham, without Will Johnson. But I thought that the front 7 was as advertised, in my opinion. I mean, the New Mexico quarterback Lane is probably waking up sore on Sunday morning because he took some licks. But they were getting to the quarterback all day long and stuffing the run a lot.
Yeah, I think you look at New Mexico's stats. I mean, they had 267 yards. A lot. They had that last drive before Troy Bowles got the sack to end the game. They had a drive going. Probably a third of their yards came from that drive. I thought, they passed for 217 yards, but they threw the ball 47 times. I mean, they averaged 3.5 yards per play. I saw someone on 247, I think, compared the last 3 Michigan home openers against Mountain West opponents. And while the score was not as lopsided, the stats were more similar to the 2022 Colorado State game than they were to last year's Fresno State game. So, pretty dominant performance. A couple of issues, that first drive, we talked about it pre-show. I think there was a lot of younger guys and guys like Jaden Mangum who hadn't played a lot of football the last year and a half since he's been injured when he was at Michigan State. He was hurt last year. So there's a lot of guys kind of getting their footing. Maybe that leads to some more success for New Mexico. Obviously, that field goal drive, Michigan bowed up because they had the ball inside the 25 after Andrew Marsh had fumbled it. But they forced a field goal attempt. And then that last touchdown drive, you get the, by the way, I don't know if you saw this, if you've seen Twitter, but Jayshon Barham will not be available for the first half. They upheld. Sharon Moore and the Big Ten agreed that it should have been overturned.
Okay. Well, I feel like this is I'm in an insane place right now, because how does Tony Petitti come out and say he's the commissioner of the Big Ten, correct? Yes. He comes out and says, I disagreed with the call, but we're going to uphold it. Like,
I don't know if that's the Big Ten's decision, because I don't know how that works. I don't know if that's the NCAA appeals process. We know the NCAA is big fans of Michigan nowadays. So
obviously, but I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. So you go from, on that drive, you're up 27-10. You go from, that would have been that would have been 3rd and 11. He was down. It wasn't a touchdown. It wasn't a fumble. But, you've got the targeting questionable call. Some people agree, some people disagree, whatever. And then you have a 3rd and 9 later in that drive that, Sharon probably should have had somebody saying, hey, challenge. Right. But he's bobbling the ball all the way through. The officials call it. They get up to the line. Kind of crazy, because when you watch college football or the NFL, typically when you have a questionable 50-50 ball on a catch downfield and that offense is sprinting up there, typically the officials have something in their brain where they're like, hey, we should look at this. Yes. That didn't happen. And then you had a couple more penalties. Michigan just, gave up they had a penalty on Jair Hill in the end zone on a 3rd and goal. And then it was another 3rd and goal that Jair kind of bit inside, and the receiver, it was that same Dorian Thompson. Thomas. He had just a little crosser into the end zone for 6.
Yeah. But I think I don't want to say fluky is like the reason for New Mexico's scores, but it didn't feel like super well earned, I would say. I mean, obviously the trick play, like very well schemed trick play also.
Yeah, I mean, but also through the quarterback's legs. We've seen that before. Has that happened to Michigan before? I feel like I've seen that.
Is it also just like not the luckiest thing ever that it bounces perfectly?
Yeah. I mean, great gutsy call. I mean, I thought, there's a lot of people who, it was a little chippy too. Interestingly,
guys were talking after every play, shoving, all of it.
And I'm sure there's a lot of Michigan fans who are not going to think that fondly of Jason Eck, the head coach of New Mexico. Kind of like it. I like a player's coach. I like a guy. You know what? Hey, it's annoying when you're sitting there and you got your backups in the 4th quarter with 30 seconds left and the guy's trying to score. I'm sorry. You play, you're not going to win the game, but you play to compete. You get one chance to play at Michigan Stadium for these guys.
Correct.
I mean, I'm trying to get these guys a touchdown, any of them, right? 100%. Like, so I don't disagree with it. They played tough. They came to win, right? And we talked about it. This was a team that had a lot of guys from the Idaho squad that almost went into Autzen Stadium last year against, the Big Ten champion, the number 1 overall seed, Oregon Ducks, and they played their tails off. So that line of 34, it opened at 37, was at like 34 and a half. I never thought that was really feasible. I think this is a really veteran squad in New Mexico. Lane, Jack Lane, he's, I think, a 4th-year guy, redshirt junior, played a lot of football. And I said this to you before the show. A lot of these top-end FCS programs might be fringe top 25 teams in the FBS. They're really talented. There's a lot of good football players on those teams. So, I thought all in all, the defense, I think, played pretty well. Again, they gave up 267 yards, 60 to 80 of those came on the last drive.
I mean, pretty impressive, obviously. 27 rushing attempts for 51 yards for New Mexico.
The front 4 especially, I thought in the run game was pretty dominant.
They had nothing going there. And so I think the one critique of the defense was the secondary, with a couple of those penalties and just giving up some yards. But now, you go back and watch it, you go back and look at it. New Mexico threw it almost 50 times, right? They're going to get a few if they throw it 50 times. So just statistically, that's going to happen. And so I think I'm going to hold my criticism of the secondary for right now. I think you still put a question mark on that for sure, but I'm not gonna like write off that our secondary is just not good. Because yeah, I think that you hold somebody, you almost double up on their yardage, from Michigan to New Mexico. So I think still some question marks in that secondary for sure. We sure as hell could use Rod Moore. It sounds like Sharon listed him as possible for this Oklahoma game. I'm going to say that I very highly doubt that he plays, but we're getting closer, I think.
Can I say that there was a moment, and I knew because I saw the injury report, I knew he wasn't out there, but the official called a penalty on number 19. And I said, did I get hoodwinked? Is Rod out there? Did I miss this? Because he switched back to number 19 this year. Yeah, I mean, I've got over here to my left the picture of him butting heads with JSN from Ohio State. I've talked about Rod Moore on this pod. He's one of my favorite players of all time. And, got a chance to go 5-0 in that game late November. Need to get him healthy, need to get him ready. I sure would love to see him go out on a high note. I think he's a high-level NFL draft prospect if he's healthy, and he would help this defense a lot because he knows exactly where everyone needs to be. So, but yeah, again,
you talked about the secondary before we hopped on too. Jaden Mangum was in there a lot, and he hadn't played a football game in over a year, right?
And Jaden Sanders played a lot. JoJo Edmond, who's a redshirt freshman, played a ton. Jordan Young, true freshman. Elijah Dotson, I saw him out there. I had up the PFF. I don't have the snap counts. I need to get those from our boy BB's Big House. He's always putting together nice spreadsheets for me on those.
That's right.
But, a lot of youth in that back end of the defense that was seeing the field. I'm excited about TJ Metcalf, transfer coming in from Arkansas. He made some plays down at that. They ended up giving up the touchdown, but I think they had like 6 or 7 to goal plays, or goal to go plays down there in the third quarter, and he made some plays in the backfield. He almost had a strip on the quarterback. Like he kind of spun him around. That ball was like a loaf of bread in that quarterback's hand. I didn't specifically watch him in coverage, but he's a playmaker, right? Like we talked with him and his brother earlier in the summer, and he's a guy that he's kind of a ball hawk. So hopefully excited to see him get. I just really liked what I saw from Metcalf. So they're going to be more comfortable together. It's like the offensive line. Like you play together, you kind of learn to trust. Hey, this guy's going to be in this part of the zone. I know where I need to be. You start to develop that trust over the course of the season.
How about Cole Sullivan?
Stud. Had a pick, had a sack.
Also an incredible – he was up there on that pick, dude.
Yeah, well, there was like 3 guys there. Also, Brandon Hillman, he was hitting guys. He saw that silver and red and said, you know what, I'm gonna go whoop some ass. He was out there delivering some blows. I thought Ernest Hausman had a heck of a game. I thought Jimmy Rolder, after Jay Sean went out, because Jay Shaw was playing his ass off, man. He was all over the field. We know what we're going to get from him. Going to miss him in the first half. Hopefully he can withstand that. But I thought Jimmy Rolder, we've talked about him, man. I remember when he committed. And I just thought that his tape was really good in high school. I thought as a freshman, he showed some things in 2022. He played a lot against, I believe, Illinois in that year. I thought he had a really solid game, but he's been banged up most of his time here. I thought he was flying around the field. He was making plays on the screen. He had a TFL on a screen. And then Troy Bowles too, he had a sack to end the game. I thought Troy Bowles was flying around. So linebacker and the defensive line are just like, I know the defensive line is like what, 8 to 10 deep. Linebackers might be like 5-6 deep. I mean, they've got guys everywhere at those positions. So yeah, you want to see the secondary catch up a little bit. But again, I mean, they gave up 217 passing yards on 47 attempts. Like that's not efficient, right? So they gave up some plays, but I thought overall that I was encouraged by what I saw, and we'll see how they kind of go the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think so. All in all, obviously, tons of good, positive things to talk about and to take away from this game. You can sit here and box score watch if you're a Sparty or a Buckeye and blah blah blah, and say, oh, 34-17, they gave up 17 points, blah blah blah. But overall, I think that it was a very positive takeaway from this. Now, I will say, I think there are some things that Michigan has to clean up. I think that just in general, we talked a lot about the 2023 Michigan football team that obviously did they go? I think they went like 15-0 or something.
Yeah, I don't think they lost a game.
If I can't remember right, but
yeah. Well, that was it's hard to know because that was the second of 2 straight undefeated regular seasons.
That's true. So it's hard to
Big Ten
remember.
champs. I don't know. Well, that's 3 straight Big Ten champs. It's hard to keep track.
Okay. And okay. But back in that 2023 season, we talked a lot about the reason for Michigan being so good. One of them was they rarely made mistakes, did not turn the ball over, barely ever. Penalties were almost non-existent, no missed coverages. And so some of the little things I think that Sharon Moore needs to, channel his inner Harbaugh and bring out is just getting those little things, Andrew Marsh fumbling on the kickoff, Samaj fumbling on the punt, which he was super lucky to get back, by the way. And then just like some of those penalties, we talked about Jair Hill that extending that drive. I think it was Sprague that had a holding call that put us back into 2nd and 12 that stalled the drive. So just a lot of those little things. Obviously, fumbles aren't little things, but just they need to clean things up. Now, again, it's game 1 with a lot of new guys seeing the football field. So this is not unheard of. But I think that's one of the things, even, the red zone, right? Like, got to be able to punch it in when you get down in there. And so those little things, I think if Michigan can continue to clean those up week after week, they're going to be really good down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, we got, 2 out of the next 3 games, and one of those without Sharon are, I guess 2 of those, but I'm more so talking about Oklahoma and Nebraska.
Yep.
Right. Those are 2 tough road environments. Oklahoma, did what they needed to do against Illinois State on Saturday night. Nebraska pulled out a tough one against Cincinnati and Arrowhead on Thursday night to kick off the season. So, a couple teams that, feeling pretty good about themselves. And, I think Michigan probably feels pretty good too. But, you talk about accountability and just getting better and improving. Bryce gave himself a C+. That is some JJ ass shit, Justin. I mean, dude, I hate to keep doing it, but like, that's the bar over the last, quarter century of Michigan football at quarterback, right? It's JJ McCarthy.
And it's funny you say that because so Bryce's cousin came to the tailgate. I don't know. I don't think you chatted with him, but
okay.
I was chatting with him just a little bit before, we got things really rolling with the tailgate. And we were just talking about how like Bryce's mentality of like, he talks like, oh, I want to be an NFL Hall of Famer. He says that. And our conversation was like a lot of people would like roll their eyes, at a 17-year-old saying, yeah, my goal is to be an NFL Hall of Famer, blah, blah, blah. The reason he says that stuff is because it's like that's legitimately like that's the path that he's trying to go down. Right. And so that's why, to your point, when he says C+, he's like, I need to be better than what I am. We're all sitting there watching like, this is really freaking good.
That's pretty good, man. Enjoying this.
But he holds himself to that higher standard. So I agree, for a freshman after his first game, he could have been like, yeah, I balled out, and did well, but he holds himself highly, to your point.
Yeah, man. I just we talked about it with Derek Moore. We had Derek on in February, March, right before spring practice, and he's like, "Hey, Bryce is in my." I mean, we've shared this tidbit so many times, but I just think it's so relevant. He's like, "Bryce is in my group, and he's busting his ass, and he's earning the respect of the team." And when you saw again, to go back to Bryce, his ability to control and command the huddle, they did a lot of tempo, by the way, like in the first quarter and not in clock management situations. Like they got up to the line. We talked about this multiple times. Like at the spring game, they had 2 delay of games. I don't think there was any dead ball penalties on the offense that I remember.
I mean,
that's a big thing.
That's a huge thing. Also, the difference in spring game Bryce to now is insane. Like,
what is the difference from August Bryce to November Bryce?
I agree.
December, what is it going to be? Right.
I agree.
He might just be the one, right? Like we don't know, but he might just be that guy where it's like, yeah, this is just, it comes easy.
Well, okay. I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Me
So
too, man.
I'm going to preface this statement with that. We've watched 4 quarters of Bryce Underwood football, so that's all we have to go off of. But
It's pretty sick, though.
It's pretty sick. But I think, like, I watched a lot of college football this weekend, right? And I don't know. I don't know that there are many quarterbacks that come November are going to be better than Bryce Underwood. I really don't. It's a bold take.
We are getting ahead of ourselves, but I enjoy, like, that's the thing about college sports and sports in general. Like, you get to be optimistic. And if you're wrong, nothing really happens to you, right? Maybe we'll get this clip. Some Buckeye 42069 will be like, you guys are idiots. So be it. I'd rather be like, I went through, and you did too. We all went through a stretch of just like, man, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. And I talked to my friend, I have a lot of folks that I work with in Omaha. I used to live in Omaha. I've got a lot of friends there. And like, I'll share with them. I'm like, hey, Michigan won a 3-year run of 12-2, 13-1, 15-0 national championship, Big Ten championships. And I'm like, that doubt still creeps in, right? You're like, when is it going to happen? When's the wheels going to fall off? This can't, when you have something like this, you might as well just get hyped, just buy into it.
But I'm being semi-serious though.
I am too.
I mean, I looked around, I watched Texas, Ohio State. Obviously, like, Ohio State's defense looked like the real deal. They made Arch look terrible, in my opinion. But like, you watch Arch, and this is comparing apples to oranges. Bryce versus New Mexico versus Arch versus Ohio State, very different, obviously. I mean, Bryce looked way more comfortable all day long. I thought Julian Sayin played well, but he didn't do anything spectacular. You're looking at, even Carson Beck and CJ Carr last night as well. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, he is in his first start and showed a ton of promise. And so I look around the country at the quarterbacks, and I look at where Bryce is now compared to where he could possibly be in November. And I think there's a legitimate chance that everyone's talking about Bryce as like, hey man, he's a top 5 quarterback in college football. I really do.
It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, just again, the leap from watching the spring game to week 1, and there's I listen to a lot of Michigan podcasts. I mean, when I'm driving or, whatever, if I'm working out, like I'm listening to Michigan podcasts during the season. And there's a lot of podcasts that I really enjoy, that I really appreciate their football knowledge. And a lot of them were like, I don't know if he's ready. And I just, in the back of my mind, like, I take a lot of, like, I respect their opinion. And I'm like, well, if they're thinking that,
yeah.
Man, I always thought in the back of my head, I'm like, man, but this kid's different. Like, he's just different, right? Like, they don't have, like, a lot of these 5-star quarterbacks come in, don't have the tools that he has in the tool bag, man. So,
and let's also just say, like, let's get through the Oklahoma game. We could be singing a completely different tune, right? Like, I do need him. We need to see him face some adversity, because he really didn't face much adversity, right? So, there's going to have to be a point where, like, what happens when he does throw an interception? How does he come back from that, right? Or, if he's facing a ton of pressure, and little things like that. Like, we definitely still have to see all that. And that is a large piece of the pie of the success of a quarterback, is facing all that.
Yeah. What I might do is I might go back and watch our Fresno State recap, because I can tell you, we may have been like, hey, this is a little bit different of a feeling, right? And it doesn't feel so much as smoke and mirrors. And we knew that there were issues last year. Like, going to that Texas game, I think I predicted like 17-14 Michigan, and that's the score you predicted. We're like, I think we're going to lose, but I'm going to throw out a Michigan prediction. I really do think Michigan's going to beat Oklahoma. I just, I feel like they're going to get the job done in a tough environment for Sharon too, especially going back to where he went to college, right? That would be kind of tough for Oklahoma, by the way. Like, I don't know if that was last year or the year before, but Josh Heupel, former Oklahoma quarterback, goes in there as a head coach of another program, beats them. Sharon comes in. That might be tough, but yeah, I think there's a different vibe with this team. It just feels a little bit more real. And again, regardless of opponent. Now, look, Bryce is going to make mistakes. He's going to throw picks this year. Like, quarterbacks throw interceptions. It is what it is. He's going to take some dumb sacks probably, but maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe he's just that guy, and we just like, all right, well, this is cool. But I think you're going to see him regardless of the opponent on Saturday night against New Mexico, I mean, again, some of those throws are just like NFL level throws already.
Yeah.
Like, I saw this one. I'm sure you saw it, but hey, go follow Jay Dew on Twitter. John Doerr, former Michigan player. He's the man, and he always does his recaps on Sunday morning. One of the things he mentioned was there was a play action where Bryce turned his back to the defense and then flipped around and threw it to Marlon Klein on a little out route. That is one of the hardest things to do for a quarterback, right? Like, it is if you're a Lions fan, you watch Jared Goff's one of the best in the world at turning his back and then, because you got to figure out again what the coverage is, because they might be in a shell and they might be disguising something. So you got to turn back around. Where's the ball going to go? Do I have somebody in my face? Am I getting hit from the backside? That's NFL level stuff. It's small things, but it's NFL level stuff. And that 18 in 13 days, 18 years, 13 days, Just, is that what it is? Right. That's insane.
I mean, yeah, I think that goes back to the comfortability. And I'm not gonna lie, I watched that clip on Twitter from Jay Dew like 100 times, and then when I rewatched the game, I rewound it like 100 times too, because just the way that he flips back around, picks up Marlon, hits him perfect, like literally
in stride, lets him turn upfield.
Couldn't have better ball placement and just like talking about the way that the ball leaves his hand, like, dude, it was a rocket, a lot of those on the run rocket. I think Clayton Safey put out a couple stats about him on the run, and he was, I think he was 4 for 4 out in the pot. I can't remember what it was, but
it's a good stat.
Good stat. All right, now I got to pull it up. Shit.
We've had too much. Well, I will say, because I did talk about some incompletions. I want to talk about a couple others. So he had the one where he rolled to his left as a righty.
He had incompletions. Wait, what?
He had a few of them. So a lot of them, though, like there was a couple that maybe were in harm's way, if you could say. But the one he rolled to his left, and he had McCulley, but it took him a little bit to turn to his left, and he fired it in a little bit late. But it was a bullet. And just McCulley couldn't hold on to it because the guy in the zone was approaching him and hit him. And then there was another one to Marlon, which I don't blame any guy, either Bryce or Marlon on this one, but there was a defender and he threw it behind him. Otherwise, Marlon was going to get decleated. So just again at 18 for him to be like, oh, first start, like I got to put this one behind him so he doesn't get absolutely obliterated. Marlon was able to hold on to it because the other guy was able to hit him, but it wasn't as bad of a hit. So, you see guys in the NFL, maybe it's a guy that just retired in Derek Carr, just hospital balls, right? Like some of our Ohio State fans that love the program that are watching this, Chris Olave got, concussed on a couple times from Derek Carr just throwing it out there. So for Bryce to have the ability to like understand, hey, I can't get this guy killed. I'm going to need him all year long. We're going to need him to win games. I just thought was like third, fourth year level stuff already.
100%. All right. I've got a great stat here for you. This is from our friend Clayton Safey. Shout out Clayton. Michigan quarterback Bryce Underwood versus New Mexico on passes on the move. 4 for 4 for 37 yards, showing great accuracy. He was 4 of 10 on throws outside of the pocket, but 8 were catchable and 6 were on target. So I just like, not only is when he was well protected, was he, very accurate and played well. But I thought, the ability to step up in the pocket when the rush was coming around the right side and still make a throw on the run and put it on the money, just all around impressive stuff. So if you're sick of us talking about Bryce, this is not the podcast for you.
I don't think any of the podcasts that you listen to in the Michigan football space are going to be anything other than Bryce Underwood. I mean, I listen to our friends, over on 3, Anthony Broom. He always has Ryan Van Bergen on. What a beast, by the way, back in his day at Michigan.
He was at the tailgate as well.
How did I miss this? You got to tell me. I had too much with Woodson whiskey. You got to let me know when these things happen. I love that 2011 defense was like, hey, Michigan can play defense. But they talked about Bryce, right? Like I was listening to, I guess it's the Monday morning quarterback, but shout out Denard Robinson's on the show with Sam Webb now. So I listen to all that stuff because I'm a Michigan fan. I know you probably listen to a lot of that stuff too. Yeah. And it's going to be about Bryce, man. So if you don't want to listen to podcasts about Bryce, maybe come back in 4 years. I don't know what to tell you.
I exactly. And let's talk to, I put out a tweet a few hours ago as well. About the guy that Bryce is going up against this week for Oklahoma, John Mateer. I haven't seen anything about Venmo for him recently.
That's good for him. Yeah,
good for him. But they threw the shit out of the ball this week. So it is, Michigan's secondary is going to be up against, a tough task here. Mateer was 30 of 37, almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns with 1 pick. Now they also didn't play a great opponent, but there's a chance that this game is like quarterback versus quarterback, Big 12, like barn burner. There's a chance. I don't know. I think Michigan's front 7 is good enough to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
But when was the last time even with JJ, it was never like, hey, we're going to have this, throw the ball as a Big 12 type situation. But I go back to it. Like, I don't know how many times JJ McCarthy threw 31 times, which Bryce did in his debut.
It wasn't often.
It was not that often. So, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. But Oklahoma's going to throw the shit out of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, though, if you look at his stats last year against Power 5 teams, and now obviously Washington State, kind of a hybrid Power 5 team. I don't know, Power 4 team. I don't know how you kind of look at them. But so against Texas Tech last year, he's 9-19 for 115 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. 17 of 34 for 245, 1 touchdown, 1 pick against Washington. 26 of 37, 327, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick against Boise. Throw them in there because they were a playoff team. 25 of 36, 4 touchdowns against New Mexico last year. They did lose that game, weirdly enough. So, when you look at kind of the kind of more of the Power 5 teams that or Power 4, I got to get used to that Mateer played last year was kind of mixed bag, right?
Well,
and obviously he's got a lot more weapons here at Oklahoma than he did at Washington State. But I also believe, if I'm looking at this right, I don't think Oklahoma really ran the ball that well against Illinois State. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can't run the ball, what Michigan's able to do with Wink and, maybe sit back in that too high shell like they have in the past against, Ohio State or Alabama or some of these other teams.
While you're looking that up, so I saw this stat as well. Mateer last season threw 20 of his 29 passing touchdowns against the 5 worst teams on the schedule.
Yeah.
Against the 4 best teams on the schedule, he had a 55% completion rate, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. So against good, I don't know. I'm not saying he's not good, because I do think he is very good, but we'll see what he can do against a good defense.
Well, yeah, and so Oklahoma, they tried to run the ball. They ran for 32 carries for 103 yards, 3.2 yards an attempt for 2 touchdowns, and a long of 12.
Wow.
So Dayton Knott, by the way, was really good at Cal in 2023. I think he was banged up last year. I think that ankle's still bothering him. He only had 1 carry for them. He was a big-time addition to their team this offseason. But otherwise, they had not a great day on the ground. I mean, you compare that again. I guess it doesn't really matter, but Illinois State, 26 carries for 117 yards, 4.5 a pop. So,
I mean, judging based off of what Michigan just did to New Mexico of, what did it end up? It was, I said it earlier, 27 rushes for 51 yards. When you're holding a team to 51 yards total, and it was, just watching the game, it was swallowed up almost every single time that New Mexico tried to run it. And so I like our chances there. I very much like our chances. Now, you got to stop Mateer from, hitting the home run, right? This secondary is going to be up for a challenge, but I like our defense up against their offense, even though they, Mateer's stats are pretty damn good.
Yeah. So real quick, shout out to Clayton Sayfield over On 3. We just had him on the podcast. I guess that one's a little outdated, but if you haven't listened to it, go check it out. But he just put out a story a couple of minutes ago, talking about, what Sharon said in the press conference. Hogan Hansen is possible for Saturday night. I know he was a little banged up coming out of fall camp. And then he said Rod is, as you said, Justin, I think you probably saw the quote, but he said, I'd say questionable, possible. We'll see how he feels. And then again, to your point, Sprague, just a little cramp.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, he said Sprague is phenomenal. I love Sprague. That's a Jim Harbaugh quote. I kind of like that. Makes me feel good about our right tackle.
Yeah, I think again, it's game 1. Everybody's gelling together, and I think that this team is only going to get better. So big test on Saturday going to Oklahoma. Just the other part that we haven't talked about yet is just being in that environment. Night game on the road for Bryce Underwood. He looked super comfortable in his own, stadium at night. But what happens when the crowd is against you? That's when, you'll really find out who can separate themselves.
But you know what travels, Justin? The run game and the defense.
Oh, I like that.
Real quick, because I know we're coming up on an hour here. Special teams, very disappointing. Like, what's going on there?
That is, of the concern, like things to clean up, man. Where can we send the bat signal back out to Jay Harbaugh, please? Like,
I don't like to speculate on anything like that, but you've had a full-time special teams coach who doesn't recruit for the last year plus, and it's not gotten better. Dominic Zavada, obviously, but that's just Zavada
being Zavada,
right? Like I might be able to coach Dom and be like, hey man, just make this field goal, brother.
Hey, go kick this field goal.
Yeah, put it through the uprights. You see them yellow uprights, just go ahead and kick it on through. So Andrew Marsh, true freshman, very excited about him. I mean, I know he had the fumble, he had the ball he didn't turn for, but obviously very excited about him. That's certainly easy to clean up. Hey, hold on to the football, like let's work on some carrying drills and things like that. But Samaj has been returning punts since the late part of his freshman year, and that's been an issue. So that wasn't always, JB Brown being the special teams coach. But I do miss when Michigan just had a guy dedicated to returning punts who did not make mistakes. So can Joe Taylor do it, or is he too valuable as a blocker?
I don't know.
I'm sure he can do it.
He can do it all. They call him Bro T instead of Joe T. Bro T.
Wow. I wish I had that nickname.
I know.
Real quick, because we talk about like everybody agrees, like the way that this team really loses games is like, turnovers, field position stuff. Like I don't need a guy that can take it to the house. I need a guy that's not going to let it bounce to the 5 or is not going to fumble it. And, again, it was, one of those that maybe took a weird bounce on Samaj. I don't know. Because we know what Samaj can do with the ball in his hands.
Well, he was running. He was sprinting backwards. So I don't even know where he was lined up. Whether
because that would be a coaching issue then, right?
So, he literally had to run like 20 yards backwards and then try to catch it. And that's what effed him up. So
maybe they didn't have any film on this punter. I don't know, man. I don't know what goes into special teams coaching anymore. So,
and I'll be honest, Hudson Hollenbeck at punter, that was his first start. He didn't make any mistakes, but it wasn't booming punts.
I think he was 4 punts for 42.5 yard average. So not terrible, but not like
he never flipped the field is what I'm trying to say. Right. And so I think that, you go back to 2023 again, the way that we won football games was doing all the little things right. We won on, all 3 facets of the game. And so special teams still looking for them to, kind of make that turn. And so, again, game 1, I think there's a lot of positive stuff to take away from it. A few things to clean up, and a big game on Saturday.
I'm excited, man. Yeah, it's been a while since we've had kind of a non-conference big road game, isn't it? It's been a minute. I'm trying to think.
Well, we have
Notre Dame.
I don't think
out of conference.
That's probably true. 2018.
Yeah, Shea Patterson's first start. Throwback.
Shout out. I was there. I'm trying to think. But also I thought that there was a stat too that Michigan has not played a road SEC game in like ever.
I don't think because I saw they've played South Carolina, but it was when they were an independent. I don't know. They've only played Oklahoma once before, I believe. It might have been in a bowl game. Yeah, it's going to be extremely interesting on Saturday night. Going to be a raucous crowd, man, because they're, but I will say this. They're kind of a fan base where it's like they're uncertain right now with their current regime, right, with Venables. So you score once or twice, you get Justice Haynes breaking a big run, you can quiet that crowd pretty easily.
Facts. We will see. We'll have another podcast later this week to talk more, dive deep into that Oklahoma.
We'll have a Blue by the Numbers. Me and BB's Big House will be we're setting some time to record this week and go through the PFF grades and kind of our thoughts on more of a formal-ish conversation. Justin, you and I just kind of say what we feel, man, and I love that. It feels good to be back, though, brother. I mean, shout out to the U. Got it done last night. I was, it's weird. I was rooting for CJ Carr, You know, the Carr family means a lot to Michigan, and obviously all the things that family specifically has been through.
Yep.
And you want to see him have success. And I thought he played his ass off, but I don't want to see Notre Dame win, man. I wish he was at a different school. Be rooting for him a little harder. But he played well. I mean, he had some picks, but first start, great game. We got tonight TCU, Bill Belichick at North Carolina. Going to be an interesting one, man. So
how many Jordan Hudson mentions are there on the broad? That's got to be like a FanDuel DraftKings betting line, right?
She's got her own NIL deals, man. She's not even a player.
Crazy.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, we don't need to get into that on this podcast. But we're back, man. It feels great. It was a great weekend of college football. Excited for the NFL to kick off, and excited to be back in the big house in a couple weeks after this Oklahoma game. Hopefully 2-0.
I love it. And we are back also. The tailgate was back. Again, thanks to Feldman, Chevrolet of Highland, and Woodson Whiskey, North Peak Brewing, Camp Vodka Water. Everybody showed out. It was awesome. So that was like my highlight of obviously seeing Bryce and being back in the big house is a feeling like no other, but like the tailgate, as my shirt said, remains undefeated.
Yeah, and just the reconnecting of people you haven't seen in a while. I mean, like you and I see each other all the time on the podcast or in person for events, and but just seeing a lot of our friends that we don't get to see year round. You get to see them in that 3-month part of the year, so that was a lot of fun. Just having some beverages. We saw some, met some fans. So that was awesome. So I had some beverages. So shout out to everybody I met. I don't remember everyone's name. I apologize. My wife couldn't keep me under control, but it was just great, man. So if anybody's coming to any of the games, 1006 Main Street, would love to see you. Love to have a beer or a shot of the Amazing Blitz, Woodson Whiskey. That stuff's good, by the way.
It's a little too good. And
they mixed it. Did I tell you that my first whiskey sour, they actually put the cinnamon whiskey in there? And I was like,
was it actually good?
Yeah, it actually worked a little bit. Yeah.
I like that. All right. We'll be back and better. We're looking at our game film, right? Also from the tailgate.
We forgot to vlog. We talked about all stuff. We're going to vlog. I completely forgot. I had the tripod.
And we said we were going to podcast, and we didn't podcast at all.
Well, it was tough. There was a band on stage. I didn't know.
There was a literal band on stage.
Yeah, next time.
All right. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.